Shaheim.
And I'm Mona.
And we both work as a part of a kind of grassroots charity called Integrate UK, dedicated to empowering young people in order to create resources surrounding Islamophobia, racial and gender inequality. And we've been working in collaboration with UK youth in creating a project around Black mental health.
And we've decided that we'd make a podcast called Between the Intersections to discuss young Black mental health between the generations, and also mental health with Black men and women and how it is different.
Yeah.
I would like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Trasi, whichever you'd like to call me, and I do a lot of community work, especially around just uniting different communities together, support, advice, sharing knowledge, things like that really. I'm particularly interested in racism because it's had a huge impact on my life, and I am interested very much in mental health because, again, it's had quite an impact on many people's lives who are close to me as well as my own, so yeah.
Is there any personal experience that stuck out to you the most in regards to mental health, something that you've experienced or something that you've seen within the community?
Yeah,
lots.
I guess...
the way that we treat people with mental health.
Yeah.
And some people are very well looked after and very well understood, and time's taken with them, as opposed to some people who have, serious... when I say mental health, because we all have mental health, it's about how our mental health is, whether it's good or poor. So there are some people who might be going through a poor mental health situation and they're not looked after very well. Like, they're very much ignored by the community, by the professionals. I've seen lots of different people from different backgrounds with same and similar illnesses treated very, very differently, and where and what they can access is shocking sometimes. Yeah.
If you feel comfortable sharing, what was it like for you kind of growing up, if you think about your parents, if you think about, your peers, in terms of like mental health experience, regardless of good or bad, what was it like?
I would say 50-50. I think generally, like now I hear a lot of young people chat about, they're stressed out, they're having panic attacks. That wasn't really heard of much growing up. I pretty much grew up in a predominantly Black community, other than going to school, which were predominantly white. And it was only really around white people I heard that stuff, like, you didn't really hear it much in the Black community. Not saying there wasn't mental health, because there were lots of people who had, not lots, but a few people I remember having bipolar, schizophrenia, people having breakdowns. It was just a different type of mental health, and the way it was discussed was very different. Yeah. You know what I mean? As opposed to when I went to school and mental health was discussed there.
Yeah. I think when I kind of, although my dad and I haven't kind of directly spoken about mental health, I think when we're talking about other issues, it kind of indirectly kind of gives me insight and perspective into how it was for him. And so I think, he grew up in Jamaica and his situation was a lot different from mine. And so I think then he couldn't there was no kind of like idea or kind of conception around like mental health. So when he kind of came over here and like you said, people are using terminology like panic attacks and like, schizophrenia and like and triggers and stuff, like he can't compute, he can't kind of understand. And I think it's kind of, language is kind of the building blocks for like expressing, your mental health and your experience and everything. And so when you don't have that language, it's like, what can you really do? If you can't verbalize it to yourself, how are you going to verbalize it to a therapist or a trusted adult, your parents and stuff? Yeah.
And I get what you're saying, Jamaican background too. Although I would say, even though they might not have the same terminology as, let's say, an English person, just for want of a better description, they have their own terminology. So they will recognise and they do understand that actually They might not call it the same thing, but they get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so they know that actually that person's going through episode right now. So, you know what I mean? Leave that one alone. Leave him. It'll calm down in a minute. Give him a couple of days or, you know what I mean? It's just, we all address things differently, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes because Western society does it a particular way, many of us still seem to think that that is the right way and that is the only way. No, it's not. Do you know what I mean? And actually, we have our own way of doing stuff. But unfortunately, we've kind of, where we've assimilated so much, we've kind of let go of our stuff rather than going back to what our ancestors would have done, could have done, would have said. You know, so I would say it's not so much that we don't know about it. We address it and we know about it and speak about it in a different way.
And do you think that there's a generational difference in attitude towards mental health, as you just
Definitely.
explained now? And do you think that, what do you think the biggest influence is in the generational gap?
I think there are many influences. Parenting styles have changed.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know, a lot of assimilation. You know, people have decided they don't want to, you know, live their Nigerian life anymore, or their Trinidadian life, or their Jamaican life. They want to be British. They would do as much Britishness as possible by the names that we've chosen for our children. You know what I mean? What we now eat. You know, some of the Jamaican-born children, they don't even know what yam and green banana is. You know what I mean? What's that? They're telling you about chips and burger. That wasn't a standard in our staple diet when we were growing up. That was a treat. Like, what? You're going to Wimpy? You don't know about Wimpy, but in my day it was Wimpy, yeah. That was like a treat to do that. We had heavy food all the time and good veg, and we were fed proper things. We didn't know about freezer food and everything there. That's a big difference. Media has a huge influence, you know. The education system, you know, which needs to be smashed down and started again. Massive influence. Your peers, you know, family. There's so much. There's so much out there that's influencing. But I can see some positive changes coming, which is nice. I think a little bit of how we were and a little bit how you are would be just amazing for the next ones coming up again.
Do you think there's an overrepresentation of young people in the discourse around mental health?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Like, use your voices, you know? I think, if I'm honest, there's probably not enough places where you are speaking and being heard. I like that you feel able to draw attention, you know? Sometimes I do feel like some young people don't actually have an understanding of what mental health is and try and use it to their advantage, and then it takes away the seriousness of what it is and how damaging it can be if it isn't addressed. But yeah, other than that, no, man, I think...
Then it kind of becomes more kind of dangerous, because it's like, if, say, you know, you have a student that's missing like a lot of work and they're saying, oh, it's my mental health, you know, how can you distinguish between whether that's real or not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like...
And that's why these conversations need to be had. When
Yeah.
people say mental health, what do you mean mental health? Because we've all got mental health.
Yeah.
So are you talking about your good mental health, or your why is your mental health great at the moment, or why is it not so great?
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I think sometimes people are definitely using it to get out of things.
But I do also think that the older adults are also very underrepresented around the stigma of mental health. And I'm not even being funny, but if a Somali person speaking Somali had shown my mum a video and how mental health is real, or shown like any of my my parents, my aunties, my uncles, like if they had shown them a video of someone speaking in Somali about how mental health is real, then maybe then they can start discussing mental health and raising awareness amongst themselves. So I do think that older adults are really underrepresented with mental health, because there's some parents that are like kick mental health to the side. They're like, it doesn't exist. Like you're not even stressed. You're not anxious. You're just like, you're doing too much.
Can I ask you, do you think they actually kick it to the side? Because I do think some of them actually definitely do. Or do you think it's a way of self-protection that they almost like they want to toughen you up so that they can trick your mind that that's not the case? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand that. But I think that that is a good way to go about it with some people. Some people might prefer to be toughened up, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, no, it's
so
not.
I do think, I do think that they don't believe in their own mental health because they're traumatized from what they've experienced.
Okay, that's interesting.
But doing that to your child then causes a cycle, which should be broken at the end of the day.
Of course,
but
definitely.
Yeah.
And I have to say, lots of them know about their mental health. They're just not sharing it with you.
Yeah.
They're just not sharing it with you. You know, it's not... And that's another thing I think that's changing. Parents are parents. You're not my brethren, you're my daughter, you're my son. Yeah? It's not this a friend thing. So that's a very big difference. So because of that, they are unable or unwilling, or I don't know why, maybe they feel less of a parent by saying to you, do you know what, actually, I don't feel quite right, you know? And because that's not been their way, and it is your generation's way, it seems like that. But yeah, they're definitely not unaware of it. They're not unaware of it. It's as to who they choose to share that with, you know. And if they're not sharing with you, they might even share that with a professional.
From the older people that I've spoken to, they have this mindset of you're just not working hard enough. Do you know what I mean? In terms of anything, like I was speaking to one of my relatives about kind of university, for example, and I was like, I'm going to try my best because I'm not expecting to start on the right foot immediately. You know, it's going to take some work. But if it's not working for me, if it's not benefiting me, if it's kind of hurting my mental health, then I'm not going to stay and do something for 3-4 years when I'm going to walk out at the end of it like a damaged and broken person. Do you know what I mean? But their response to it was just, you're not trying hard enough. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's like a disconnect between the older generation and the younger generation, because I guess maybe it's just the terms we're using and just the way we view it. But we have this whole kind of culture around self-care. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas the older generation, I feel like, while it might look very, very different, and I think that's where we kind of butt heads a lot. Yeah. And I just wanted to know it's kind of big, but I just kind of wanted to know what your kind of thoughts on that were.
I think self-care is important and is necessary, you know? And I think one of the things of self-care that we leave out is knowing yourself. No one knows you better than you know yourself, you know? Like, nobody. And sometimes you cannot lie to yourself. You know you. So your relatives, elders, can say whatever they like. You know yourself that, you know what, I'm struggling with this. Like, auntie, you know, uncle, whoever, can say whatever. I know what it is that I'm going through. I know when I'm sad, who feels it knows it. Yeah? And you know that. You know that. I know that. It's just us. So as long as you're being true to yourself, I just say do your thing. And that's for whoever. You know, you're never going to make everybody happy. You know what I mean? Look, we're all in here dressed differently. I'm sure all of us have different favourite foods. We're different, you know, and that's okay.
And would that be your advice to young black people right now?
Which is
obviously everybody is different.
Everyone's different, and we're unique and we're different, you know, and it's okay. You don't have to follow the crowd, you know. That's it's okay to say that that's not for me, because university isn't for everybody, you know. It isn't for everybody. We know this. School isn't for everybody. The way they teach isn't. Some people learn visually, don't they? Some people learn orally. Everyone does it different, you know, and we're still in that mode of one way for all, you know, and it's not the case.
So looking at like how we tackle mental health, you know, even the kind of generationally, without taking that one-size-fits-all approach, what do you think needs to be done? How can we kind of fit around everybody's needs, you know, generation, older and young people?
I mean, making access easier for everybody. Accessibility is difficult for everybody. And just having more information in more places. I don't think it's enough. Sometimes if you're not in a particular area, you don't open a particular magazine, or you're not in that group of people, you'll never know anything that's going on, you know. I speak to a lot of young people who don't know, for example, about OTR. Off the record, have been around for years. I'm always shocked that they don't know about OTR and where they're based, you know. Yeah, so yeah, I would just say it's about getting the information out there on lots of different platforms, you know, so not just leaflets in your doctor's surgery, you know, maybe use the Instagram or
social media.
Yeah, Snapchat, all of that. Utilize it. We don't use it enough.
Yeah.
For good, I think.
And obviously going back to the last about how older adults usually self-protect. What are the biggest issues affecting older black adults, people like right now, and mentally as well?
Okay, there's so many issues like financial,
kids.
There's so much I think affecting elders right now, but I would say job opportunities, you know, education, self-care, discrimination, racism, because people say that things have changed, and they have changed, but not enough. You know, again, accessibility to whatever, whether that's about your mental health, education, where to get support and advice. Yeah, stuff like that, really.
We have a kind of few statistics here. So stuff like rates of self-harm could be rising more quickly in children and adolescents from kind of ethnic minority groups than those from white groups. That's from the University of Manchester. 2021 shows that black and mixed race children accounted for 36% of young people detained in the highest level units, despite representing just like 11% of the population. That's cited by The Independent.
I was just going to say, unfortunately, that's down to adultification. You know what I mean? We are very much seen as... I remember being in school, and I still hear young people say it now, like, you're in the class, and the white children are talking too, but only the black children are pulled up. You know, hold on a minute. Can you not see Mary Sue?
Yeah.
What?
And
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it goes from the classroom to the streets, because now...
All the way.
100%.
All the way, you know? And there's no way that it does not have effect on your mental health. There's absolutely no way. And it's always shocking to me when I meet, you know, a black person, I've met two in my life, to be fair, that said they've never experienced racism or discrimination. And I said, either you're a very, very, very blessed person, or you're just oblivious to it, and you're just unaware.
100%.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that haven't seen
Do you know what I mean?
haven't seen it.
And, you know, and I do remember on one occasion, one of them, I had to say, that statement your friend just made, that's racism.
Yeah. No,
I just thought she was joking. I said, no.
No, there was a time where I was in high school, and there was a group of black boys and then a group of white boys, and then there was this police officer that used to work at our school. So she used to walk around hang around near the black boys just to see if there was anything going on, you know, because they're always play fighting, but the white boys are doing the exact same thing. And I could just see that during break and during lunch. I'm like, you guys do not see this woman following you every time. It's not normal. You shouldn't have to be monitored when you're just having fun. And there was a time where one of the boys got pulled from the group, and there was we were sat around here like this, and a black woman asked, a black teacher, she asked us, have you guys ever experienced racism? He said no, blatantly. I was like, you have a teacher that follows you around and watches what you do every other day, and you think you've never experienced racism. And I feel like that was shocking to me. So some people are just generally oblivious to the facts. Yeah.
Or they don't want to be the one to make noise. They want to be seen as the troublemaker, because you'll find, especially as a black person, white person, they're very articulate, very well spoken, outspoken. But as a black person, you're labelled as the troublemaker, the mouthy one. Do you know what I mean? You're useful when they want you to speak up. You know, whether that's a black or white person, you're useful when they want you to speak up on their behalf. Go on. That's not fair what the teacher just said or what the boss just said, you know what I mean? But, that's...
It's taken, and what we were kind of speaking about before the podcast about kind of microaggressions and stuff, and how it's not really micro. I think it's taken me a while, because I feel like at some point, I don't know why, but I had kind of teachers coming up to me and being like, you're so well spoken, you're so articulate, and I showed my teacher this thing that I wrote, and he goes, I wouldn't have expected that from you. the more I at the time when I was getting all these kind of compliments and praises, I was thinking, like, thank you, like nobody's ever told me this before.
Yeah.
But the more like I kind of delve into it, I'm just like, it's not okay. Like you're saying this because it's not what you expect from a young black guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I think it's just really hard to like understand that, you know, what you're going through is kind of is racism as well.
How do you guys manage that? Because I'm very interested to know how your generation manages. For us, my generation, it was definitely a lot of fighting, and whether that was, you know, physical or non-physical, it was a lot of fighting, a lot of having to stand up for yourself, like constantly. I said to somebody recently, COVID was amazing for me. Like, I didn't have to deal with the racism going to the shop, walking down the road, anywhere, do you know what I mean? Not even on the TV, because I didn't watch TV, so, do you know what I mean? It wasn't turned on, so I didn't have to face in that. How do you guys, did your generation manage that?
I feel like a lot of the racism that I experienced was always in secondary school. So I feel like it was mostly from teachers, it was never from students.
Okay, that's nice to hear.
Yeah. I've had a teacher one time have a go at me because I wasn't doing too well in a subject, and he was like, "Oh, give me a student's name or something," and then he was like, "If you want to be as good as her, you have to work 2 times harder. Like you have to work so much harder to be as good as her." And I was just thinking, oh, he just meant to say it because I wasn't working as hard. But I told the teacher, and she was like, "That's not okay." Like she saw right through him, and it was kind of a race thing. And then I kind of just like broke down because I was just like, I didn't expect something. That's a teacher. Like this man has taught me for 2 years, and I didn't expect anything. So I don't know how I dealt with that. At the time, it was kind of more processing what I'd went through, and the more dealing with the aspect. I at that time ended up filling the self-fulfilling prophecy. I lived up to what he expected of me, which was not doing well. But from then I learned that that's not what I should have been doing. But I shouldn't, either way, I shouldn't be living up. I shouldn't be doing 10 times as working as hard just to be at a good spot in my lesson. But I shouldn't also be doing bad because that's what he expects of me. So there was really no winning. But at the end of the day, I just kind of, you just have to, well, I kind of just firmed it. You know, you just have to pick yourself up from that moment, and you have to just process what you're going through and acknowledge that what you're going through is tough. But obviously I had to deal with it in a different way. At the end of the day, I can't go, you know, scrap my teacher. But
I think
I didn't scrap my teachers though. It was other children, but I would have scrapped the teachers.
I think for me it's kind of split into two. So like what Winnie was talking about, processing and then doing something about it. So for me, like I had this one experience where this was during COVID times. We had teachers out at the gate, kind of welcoming students in and everything. I bought this like really, really long coat and I loved it. And then this teacher comes up to me and he's like, new coat? I was like, yeah, I got a new coat. And he was like, as a joke, he was like,
you look like a drug dealer.
Yeah, you look like a drug dealer.
Yeah, I saw that coming.
And I was thinking, at the time, I was like,
oh, funny
cool,
joke.
We'll laugh it off. And not that it's acceptable, but he was Asian. I feel like I would have been able to recognize him more if he was a white person. But I said that to someone just like a week or two ago, and they were like, that's not okay. And I was thinking, damn.
Yeah, that's racist.
I'd even like if another black guy had told me like he did that, I would have been like, that's racism. You know what I mean? But I wasn't able to kind of process it. So I think the first part of it is processing it. The second part is actually doing something about it, and I would say that's where kind of Integrate comes in. And that's where Integrate is really important, because it kind of gives young black people a way to kind of challenge, you know, the racism, and the way to kind of express themselves in a way that's healthy. It's better than kind of going out in the streets and fighting it with your fists and stuff. You know, you're actually you know in an environment with kind of trusted adults, and you're putting something out into the world that is of use and that can benefit other black people, you know?
Can I just say that when I say fighting, because we were attacked, so I'm not talking about you just going out
100%.
warring. I'm talking about, it wasn't just name calling for us, it was like, they're putting your hands on you.
But at the time,
so, do you
didn't have a space
so
to
I don't
come
know
up
if
and
you
speak out either.
But
so I feel
it's different for you guys now, because we
times
had, we had spaces to speak out. I have to say, I went to an African educational school on the weekend, where I was talking about my black history. So I knew about black inventors from I was young. I knew about Mansa Musa. I knew about, you know, we'd invented all different things.
Yeah.
You know, so I knew about that from a very young age. What's changed now is white people are open to listen. White people are in spaces. We are in fashion right now. Yeah? There's always been a Black Lives Matter movement. It's not new. It didn't just come the other day. It was just made public. Yeah? And people got on board with it. But it has always been there. It isn't anything new. Right now, you have people are interested. They want to put money towards things like this. In my day, they were interested. We had people like Integrate. We had this, but no one was interested to back it. You know, no one wanted to offer you office space. You know, no one wanted to offer you training. You know, and if someone did try to do it, it wasn't very well supported. And I'm saying to you, you guys are just in that time right now. Yeah. I could have been born into this time. You know, and it's also something that my generation has laid down for you. The generation before me laid down for you and for me. The generation before them laid down for them, for me, for you, and the next to come. Do you know what I mean? As what you're doing now, it's going to lay down for the next generation. So it's all been part of our journey, and I'm hoping the next generation down are going to find it easier again. You know, we're wanting to learn each other's cultures and stuff. Lots of people. We were having a conversation earlier on. We were saying about there are different types of black people and there are different types of white people. White people get that there are different types of white people. You know what I mean? Welsh, Scottish. When I say white, I should say English, actually. English, Scottish, Welsh. You know? We talk about the Northerners and the Southerners. So why don't you get that not every black person comes from Jamaica? Not every black person. Do you know what I mean? We're different, you know?
100%.
So for me, I think that's something really important to take away, that we've all been through our different struggles, but those struggles have also helped each other as well. You know what I mean? So keep pushing on. Can I ask you a little question?
Ooh.
Can the interviewee ask on us something? I want to ask you something. How has history played a part for you guys in looking at mental health? Or has it played a part for you? Because I know I was talking to one of you saying that you do sociology, maybe?
Yeah,
We
we
both
both
do
do.
Yeah. Oh, you both do?
Yeah.
I do sociology as well.
Ah.
Yeah, how has it played a part in you?
That's a tricky question, I'm not going to lie.
Or can I ask you how sociology has played a part then?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably
I don't want to get political, actually.
Go on, get political, go on.
I think I've kind of a really big thing that like we've talked about. My teacher's a Marxist, so she believes in,
Capitalism.
yeah, and like the class divide and everything. So we've had like really interesting discussions over the past like year, and I would say now that like the way I think about things, like I think a lot of things come from capitalism, and I think when we talk about mental health, that's a massive thing. So I would say me learning more about capitalism and the role that it plays in society has helped me better understand why mental health is so bad.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's things like believing we live in a kind of meritocracy. Theoretically, if we work hard enough, we should be able to get what we want, but that's just not the way things are. And this kind of value and pursuit of money over everything else. You know, it's like you got to work a 9 to 5, but you're getting money, you're paying the bills and everything. That's not the way it should be. Do you know what I mean? We shouldn't need to, work a 9 to 5 just to be able to eat. That's a human right. So when we talk about mental health, I think we need to just be aware of like the fact that we live in a capitalist society and the effect that then has on mental health. That we shouldn't have to work hard for the basic things. So yeah.
Thank you.
I think, well, it's not going to be as great as yours, but I think for me, it was more when I was learning about material deprivation, where I was like, this could take a toll on someone's, not only their education, but once that takes a toll on their education, it takes a toll on their mental health. As someone that grew up with not that many laptops in the house, I was always like falling behind. And obviously now I've got the equipment to do well in school, but back then times were different for me. So I had to share a laptop. COVID hit. Now me and my sister are sharing a laptop just to go on school. It's just not the same. And I feel like that took a toll on my mental health during my GCSE years. And when she can't use the laptop and I'm using the laptop, then she's gonna fall behind on school. And I feel like learning about material deprivation and why working class people don't do well in school then affects their mental health. That's what made me realize that like mental health in sociology was important.
Yeah.
My
Oh, thank you both.
Yeah.
No, go on.
My teacher used to work in a private school actually, and she was talking about how the kids there, you know, the middle class, white and everything. I think I don't want to butcher the story or anything. It's not word for word, but she was talking to one of the students and about kind of GCSEs or I think it was A levels and you know actually the exam period and everything. He was like, well, I've got a holiday booked, you know, during that time. And I would never think, not even that I can afford the holiday, you know, but like, I would never think about like just scheduling in a holiday during exam season because obviously I'm going to be working, I'm going to be revising, I'm going to actually be doing my A-levels.
Yeah.
And she was just like, well, he's already got his place secured regardless of whether he does it or not because he has the social connections and everything. So I think one thing that sociology has taught me that I kind of already knew, but it definitely kind of reaffirmed it was that not everybody has the same life chances, and there's just such a complex web of things. Yeah, that kind of go into how well you do, you know, how your mental health is received and everything, and it's just
it's so real. Like you know, all of us in this room right now, we could all go through the exact same experience, and we'll all address it in a different way, and we will all manage it in a different way. No one's right or wrong about it, but it's just who we are, you know, as people. And what you would say with regard to education, I'm still shocked that even your generation now are still not being taught financial literacy. That's a standard thing at private school.
Oh, really?
Standard thing. Why are we still not doing that for our young children? Teaching us about, you know, your mental health from a young age. That should be a standard thing across schools because not all parents can do it all. No parent can do it all, let's be fair. No matter how great a parent you are, no parent can do it all. And, you know, what if you're not getting it at home, you should be getting it at school. What you just said about your, you know, the laptop and stuff. Why is that the only way to learn now? You know, there should be other ways to learn, but they shut down our libraries. That's what I did as a young person. I went to the library, did my work there, you know, and I could take the books. There aren't enough libraries for us to even use anymore, you know. The fact that, you know, we're tapping everywhere. You guys are soon going to lose the ability, maybe not you so much, but the next generation down, how to just simply count and take away and multiply because you're not having to do that anymore because you're not using cash. You know, so they're all having an effect and in turn, that has an effect on our mental health and the way we live day to day to day.
I think it's really interesting what you said about like the library shutting down and everything. I have, you know, one of my best friends, she has like 11 siblings. Her eldest siblings have gone now, so she's kind of like the oldest, and she's, you know, she's kind of is expected to take responsibility of her younger siblings and everything, and, you know, obviously kind of lift the weight off her mum. But, you know, when she's got school, then, you know, you got all that kind of noisy surroundings. If the library's shut down, then where can she go to do her work? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, who found that Somalia has the highest rates of mental illness in the world, with 1 out of 3 households in Somaliland struggling with ill mental health? That comes from the Biomedical Centre. And then it said down here that in Jamaica, psychosis was responsible for over like 100,000 visits to public health clinics for mental illness in 2016, accounting for more than 80% of mental illness-related public clinic visits nationwide. You know, I don't know. Yeah, I just thought they were very kind of like impactful, like statistics to put in.
You know, Somalia and Jamaica Jamaica especially really, very colonised places. And I feel, you know, many countries are still feeling the effects of that. So until countries get back up on their feet and, you know, get back to themselves again, this is going to continue and continue and continue. And I'm sure some people will say the use of ganja, weed, cannabis is got a lot to do in Jamaica. But, you know, there's a lot of poverty there, as is in Somalia. So, you know, there's a variety of things I can imagine as to why it's contributed to that. Also, sometimes I feel stats show the story that they want to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can sometimes, manipulate things to what you want it to be.
Being a kind of, being an immigrant and kind of coming here and not knowing the language, the ways of life, not even knowing how to get the education necessary, how to get, a good job to kind of financially support yourself and everything. Like, I just don't think we talk enough about feeling that alien, do you know what I mean? And the kind of mental health impact that has. It's particularly on the older generation, because we're all, I think a lot of us are like first, second generation immigrants, our parents came here and everything.
Yeah.
And we don't speak enough about
their
the
experience.
impact. And their impact. And they're still feeling alien, it's still like a learning.
And that's what I mean about them holding it in. Those are things that could be discussed that would help you say, that's why, Granddad behaves like that. And because there are so many things that trigger people, so many things. I know there's so many things that trigger me on a daily basis, so that open communication, and sometimes there's just not enough of it between generations, for whatever reason.
Yeah, because if you come from a place of war, and you come over here, you're still living in that war's still in your head. You know what I mean? It doesn't go away, or it isn't somehow kind of like
you're fighting like your own internal battles. Basically.
Yeah, 100%. It doesn't go away as soon as you kind of step into Britain. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, even this Windrush, it's vexed me differently. Like, honestly, and when I hear some of the comments people are making, I have to say, you do realise Jamaica was actually part of the Queen's Empire. So actually, every single Jamaican person was considered a British citizen. What is it that you're not getting? And it's not that they're not getting, they don't care. It's racism. We don't want you brown and blacks here. And that's just it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And no matter how much you try and open that dialogue, they should have never been, forced to pay for naturalisation papers, which is what you had to do back then. They should have never been deported because they were considered British citizens. How does that happen? That is not going to happen to anybody from a white country, ever.
Yeah.
So even for me, even that, you guys even seeing that is letting you know you're not welcome here. Don't watch that you're born here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't trick yourself and think that you are welcome here and you are part of this, because they're letting me know, we're not interested. We don't want you. We never did.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you hear people playing off different countries against each other. And I say, what was given to people coming from black countries now was not what was given to black people when they came back in the 50s, 60s and 70s.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as well that I think it was Priti Patel who kind of came up with this whole kind of idea of deporting
to Rwanda.
Oh no, I think it might have been, but I was talking more about a kind of Windrush and everything.
Okay.
About kind of deporting people back.
Before her.
Yeah, and I was thinking of, this might be a bit off topic, but I was thinking about kind of POC solidarity, and we talk about how we're all kind of one, even in the kind of conversation about mental health, we're all kind of one and everything. But then you think of Rishi Sunak, who, although he's Asian, he grew up from a middle class background, was, I think, privately educated and everything, yet he actively kind of campaigns for and puts in place policies that affect us the worst. Do you know what I mean?
For me, that's about assimilation. If you become part of something, not only do you become, you think you become part of it, you will then be picked on, and it'll be other people be picked on, and this othering happens a lot throughout our society, and it's something that we need to try our best to stop, because just because we're being treated all right, it doesn't mean we should stand by and watch that person being treated the way we used to be treated. It's not okay, I
think even then he's still a puppet, do you know what I mean? Because people can still turn around and say, well, he's British Asian and he's Prime Minister, so what about you? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah.
That's used quite often, actually.
Yeah.
But he's actually still one of you.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I'm sure he hasn't had that struggle of, having to go to a food bank, as lots of people who are working 9 to 5 right now are having to do,
Yeah.
or deciding, electrical food, gas or electric,
Yeah.
petrol or walk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That holiday to Butlins or to the Bahamas,
Yeah.
holiday at all,
Yeah. Okay, so I guess to kind of wrap this conversation up and everything, we've covered like a lot of topics,
Okay.
but what would, in terms of like somebody kind of listening in and kind of watching, what's the main few things you would want them to take away from this conversation?
Take care of your mental health. I think journaling is really important. What you eat is really important. What you put inside your body. Know what your environment is, who you're putting yourself around as well, because sometimes people drain your energy.
Yeah.
You share your aura, your energy with people that you shouldn't necessarily be doing that with. So that's part of your self-care.
Yeah.
You keep your house clean and tidy, your car clean and tidy, your bedroom, your shoes, what have you. Do that for yourself, your mind, body and soul, and don't be afraid sometimes to take yourself out of situations, and don't be afraid to speak up, but also don't be afraid to be silent when you need to be, because it's not every time you have to be the person to point something out.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might not be able to verbalise it right there and then. Don't be afraid to send that email, because people tend to pay attention to emails,
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Love yourself as being a melanated person. Like, we are great, we are powerful, regardless of what education has taught everybody that we are less than. We so are not. So just love yourself, love your people, and, be happy being you.
Yeah, on top of when you said, going back to the self-care tips, you said journaling. Were there any other self-care tips that you would want somebody else to hear who didn't know what to do?
To talk to somebody, there are phone lines that I know you can call, and you can contact your doctor. You might have that elder, whether it be your teacher, a neighbour, family member. Talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody. Do things that make you feel good, Spend time in nature. That's really important to connect with the natural world.
Yeah.
And just don't be afraid to do your thing,
Yeah.
Your thing might not be your brethren's thing, and that's okay. I walk down the street doing all kind of foolishness. I know people look at me like, that woman's off key. Yeah, I am. And what kind of business? But I sing all the time. I skip walking down the road. You know what I mean? It's whatever feels good to you,
And authentic, yeah.
Yeah. Being your authentic self. There's just a purity in that you can't buy that.
Yeah.
You just can't buy that. And you said something key earlier on, materialism.
Was that you?
It's so. I think both of you might have said it, but I definitely remember you saying something about materialism.
Because you were talking about capitalism.
Yeah. It's not what it's made out to be, and it's what is helping to destroy us, really.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Tracy, for
Thank
talking
you
to us.
very much.
Thank you.